So hey there fellow YouTubers, Frank Bush here again. So thanks for tuning in. Today I plan on doing a bushcraft rope table. So I brought along with me, I'm just out in one of the local parks in my area, but I brought along a 50-foot hank of rope, and I brought along the equivalent about another 50 feet of rope, but it's done up in 20 loops of rope that are 28 inches a piece, just cut to length, and then with a couple fisherman's knots turned into loops. So stay tuned, you'll see how I build my bushcraft rope table. So for the supplies needed, I have 3 larger sticks that are about 5.5 foot, 6 foot length. And then I have 3 smaller sticks that are about 2.5, 3 foot length. And then, as mentioned earlier, I have the rope hank of 50 foot solid length and 20, I don't think I'll use all of them, but 20 rope loops that are just tied in the pile right now. So people that have watched previous videos of mine have seen me use a loop where I fold it in half. I take the 3 long pieces of wood, I turn around and put the loop over those, set it in a couple inches, 6 inches or so, and then I take the middle stick and twist it on itself. And I keep doing that a couple times until the rope at the top becomes taut. As soon as it's taut, I now have my functioning tripod. So that'll be the first step. So then, as you can see, the loop just tightens in on itself, and you now have your tripod set up. Should look something like that. Yeah, so I forgot to mention, I'm going to need a couple of Canadian jam knots. So I'm just going to take a couple of the loops I have. I'm going to loosen off the fisherman's knots that I had tied, and just so I can get a couple pieces of rope. I'll cut right back. So as you can see, I just loosened off the knots on a couple of those loops just to get back a couple strands of rope. So these are 28 inches in length. The length, it doesn't need to be exact, but I tend to make all of my loops cut to 28-inch lengths. And that way, for one, there's standardization with my loops as much as possible, and for two, in order to have a 1 inch round or 1 foot round loop, it gives me a couple inches on the knot side of things that'll get lost so when you tie the knots. But either way, I just needed these 3 pieces of rope. I'm just going to whip together a couple Canadian jam knots. So really simple, a little overhand knot. Put another one in the line. Now this one I'm going to want fairly close to that one, but I'm going to keep that a little on the loose side still. This will wrap around an object, come back through that hole. You'll see in the next scene. Smaller sticks I have, I'm going to take the ends of 2 of those, keep them to the outsides, but I'm going to kind of bring all those together. Hopefully the camera's picking this up okay. I'm going to bring that loose knot around and put my cordage through that, and then I'm going to cinch this all tight. So the Canadian jam knot just allows you to kind of set that and have tension applied, and it'll hold. I'm going to do that with the smaller pieces of the wood on each leg of the tripod. So once you've lashed on the smaller pieces with the Canadian jam knots, it should look something along those lines, where the tripod's just kind of been strapped with the extra wooden bracings. And now it kind of becomes more of a rigid structure. So for each one of these shorter lengths of wood, I'm going to use 5 of these loops, and I'm going to tie them on like a lark's head knot. I'll switch angles, and that way you guys can see how I just kind of set these onto the wood. This is a really simple knot. You just take your loop, wrap it around the wood, pass one end through the other. I now have that strapped on. Now you see it goes into almost the center of where the table would be. So seeing that that goes in too far, I'm just going to take it and wrap it around a second time and pass it through. And it's really just to shorten up the length of distance I am for the loop to the center. I'm going to hook 5 of these onto each side of the wood now. Okay, so just so you can see where I've attached the Canadian jam knots on the corner, I put a little 1/2 inch in it as well, just to help ensure that those knots wouldn't come loose. But needless to say, the lark's head loops, if you will, that I've hooked onto these wooden pieces, I've got 5 now sitting on this one side. I'm going to do 5 on each side. Okay, so I got 2 sides on. So it only takes about 5 minutes for each side, if that. Not even. But I didn't think you guys wanted to sit there watching me put on knot after knot. So I've got all 3 sides done up now. Should end up looking something like this if you make it to this stage, if you plan on doing such a thing. I've got 5 loops that are just pinned off to each side. They're done anywhere from being more like a Prusik loop, which I might even go back and just do these an additional wrap around one time, just to shorten the length that they are out to the middle. But it's either like a lark's head, depending on the size of the tripod you build, or you do it more like a Prusik loop, which, as you can see, that was a smaller stick in diameter, so they were more like Prusik loops, whereas this one was a larger one. Then it's almost like a lark's head with just a single extra, but if I wrap it one more time around, it becomes a Prusik loop. So, but either way, I might just go back and redo this side to bring these all in a bit. I'll see if I have enough length on it. Just want to make the table area as big as possible. Okay, so now with the 50-foot hank of rope I have just a little eye that I tied onto the end of it. I'm gonna hook this on to the first of the loops that are attached to the wood. I'm gonna just kind of pull it back through on itself for a second. And this isn't gonna look the prettiest on camera, but and then I'm gonna take my hank and feed it through, and then it just kind of sets on to that loop now. Okay, so all I really did here is, at this point in time, space out the lark's head or Prusik loops so that they're kind of spread out as wide as can be in the area. And then I took my 50-foot hank of rope and just connected it on to the first one. And now my thinking really is I'm just going to start feeding this through now. And I'm going to go around the perimeter first off. Come back to the one I started on. Just kind of apply a bit of tension. Now the thinking really is I'm going to jump to every second one. So go around that one, I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go around that one, skip this one, around the next, skip, around. So I just stepped back a bit because with these things you can easily make mistakes. So I came through this one, I'm going to skip this one, I'm going to come through this one, I'm going to skip this one, so I'm going to come through this one, and it gets tricky on the corners. I think I'm going to come through this one. I think that's where I made the mistake. And then I come through this one. it looks like a bit of a muddled mess, and that's because it is. But when you start to apply tension, it becomes a surface that you can kind of use and set stuff on and that type of thing. So I'll just keep going. So then when it comes to kind of hitting the point where, all right, you're going to stop, let's say I need to, I could easily come back and reinforce things just by going alternative ways. You don't have to do an exact pattern once it hits a certain point. You just get enough points along where you can start weaving into it. And as you do that, every time you apply tension, it just creates more surfaces, if you will, that'll kind of lock and hold things. So I'll just keep doing that. Through there, say. I don't know if I like that one. It becomes a muddled mess. Sorry, I'm just looking for a good spot to kind of go off on. Maybe from this point instead. I'll drop it down through there. You can see that even though it might become a little bit of a mess in your pattern here, you quickly get to the point where there's enough of a surface that you can start to just toss things on, such as, you know, your hat or a water bottle and those types of things. I mean, you could easily, here, I'll just finish this off. I know, like I say, it's a bit of a mess. This is the first prototype I've done of this. You're really into some experimental development, if you will, at this point. But I'm just gonna take this part, make sure that I apply a fair bit of tension to it, because I want it to be kind of good and locked. I'm just gonna half hitch this in place for right now, just to kind of give me a surface. So like I say, I think I've got further development to work out how I'm going to do the actual weaving in here. It turned into a bit of a mess there. But I think the idea that I'm going along is kind of the right one now. There, see, easy enough to throw a hat or jacket and that kind of stuff on, right? And I can easily hold the weight. Doesn't seem to be a problem in that regard. Okay, well, this has promise. Like I said, this is kind of prototypal concepts that I'm working with. But, you know, obviously if you were to make this more of a permanent table, you would turn around and snip off the hank of rope and kind of clean up that with a proper knot instead of just a little half hitch. This was more just conceptual for me. But it seems to be working out okay. Like I said, for when it comes to stuff like water bottles and jackets and those types of things, it's easy enough to throw those on there without it falling through the cracks or whatever. Now, if you wanted to make it for smaller items, you'd have to put some ferns on it or that type of thing. But one of the key things I do like about having this kind of construct as a table, the idea of it anyways, is that I can pick it up and it stays firm, but it's easily movable. I can now set it into a different location and just have it be used there. You know, a lot of bushcraft stuff, when you build it, it's awkward to kind of move around and set it in new places. Whereas I do like the idea of this being something that I can just shift and move, and it's an independent unit. You know, I'd like the idea of getting rid of these sticks at some point in time so it could be collapsible. You know, these cross support sticks. But, you know, like I say, things in progress. It's hopefully, I'll think more about how I'm going to do this kind of interwebbing on the inside. I know I made a bit of a mess of it, and for that I'm sorry, but either way, you can see the concept is still functioning, even though it's not the prettiest. I'm sure there's a pattern that's out there somewhere that I can just follow that'll give me a cleaner, almost like dream catchers or something, right? Where it'll give me a kind of cleaner web on the inside. But other than that, for a first take, I'm pretty pleased. But there you have it, my improv bushcraft rope table. Worked out a little better than I thought it would even. So thanks for following along, and hopefully I'll have a new full episode out soon. Cheers. Well, like I say, thanks for tuning in, fellow YouTubers. You know, I'm always trying to come up with new concepts, new ideas of how to do things that are functional and different and new, and you know, I want to entertain you guys while I'm putting these videos together, but you're observing some of the prototypal stuff that I kind of ponder in the back scenes, if you will. Hopefully this will become a more polished concept when I actually go to do a full-length video. There's new concepts of videos I have in some new locations, hopefully, where I'll be using this and a few other things in that video. So, you know, I've already got that stuff mulling in my mind, but there you have it. You get to see the kind of prototypal development that's going on. I think this has promise, you know, in the longer run. It didn't, like I said, I'm a little disappointed that some of these are loose and stuff, but overall the concept is solid. I can apply a half decent amount of weight to it, and like I said, I can pick it up, move it around with one hand. It's definitely easy and lightweight and that kind of stuff. So the potential is there. So, and as you can see, it only took about a minute and a half, 2 minutes maybe, to rip the whole thing apart. Given the fact that I was using the Canadian jam knots and the loops and stuff, it's very rapid to just assemble it and retrieve all your rope. I'm back to my original rope supplier that I came into the field with. I didn't lose anything. And the sticks I just kind of throw back down to the ground and let them be what they are. So I'm going to tie my 28 inch lengths of rope back into being loops again, and bind it back up with a little Canadian jam knot that I use just to kind of keep all that stuff together. But there you have it. The project comes together really quickly and tears down without any waste supplies or any of that. So I always like to have it that way. And all my knots I try to use are quick release or easy to retrieve back out again afterwards. And this is just another example of that type of thinking. So if you enjoy this type of content, like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.